War never brings victory for those who lose. Those who lose their lives, and those who survive lose their souls. A soldier returning from war can never be the same again because, in war, he has witnessed the side of humanity that lacks any humanity. Everywhere there is blood, screams filled with pain, lifeless bodies, wounded friends, heavy breaths, and the terrifying sight of destruction. Everything makes you realize one thing: death. On that battlefield, your body sends a message to your mind. Only one thing: if you want to save yourself, you must kill the one in front of you. And then, unknowingly, you become that monster who is unaware of love, compassion, or mercy, of being capable only of cruelty. In a way, even the survivors die, carrying their deaths in the form of traumatic experiences and PTSD. And one such soldier from these wars is Tom.
Everyone's a whole, Bryce. We just sell different parts of ourselves.
I do not want him to spare me because of some fucking peace pact. That he who fights by the sword, he fucking dies by it, Tommy.
Thomas Shelby. Peaky Blinders is set on a timeline after World War I, and Thomas Shelby was also part of that war. His role in that war was something that is painful to even imagine. He was a tunneler digging tunnels underground, creating paths beneath enemy lines. The biggest enemy of a tunneler is not just the enemy, but also the ground itself. One explosion in the tunnel, and the same ground becomes your grave. Like every soldier, the war left a deep impact on Thomas. Courage, cruelty, the ability to read people, and the capability to think clearly amidst chaos, these were the qualities the war gave him, along with the haunting memories that ruined his sleep. But Thomas wasn't the only one in the war. So, what makes Thomas different from the others? In my opinion, two things. First, his ability to think strategically and effectively, no matter the circumstances. Like ordinary people, Thomas can also get angry, cry in pain, or lose control. But even then, he can think. And when I say he can think, I'm not talking about ordinary thinking. I'm talking about thinking beyond pride, present, and impulses. His ability to think allows him to see the bigger picture of his current situation and the future, and make decisions accordingly. Along with his thinking, Thomas is hungry for control. He wants control over everything: his work, his family, and even his love. But as they say, not everything can go your way. Often, things slip out of his control, and he gets angry. But he never lets his anger influence his decisions. Thomas understands both his selfishness and his strength. Strength is merely a slave to time, and Thomas understands this well. He doesn't always act offensively or dominantly. Instead, he sometimes deliberately shows weakness, shakes hands with his enemies when needed, and even turns friends into enemies. He knows when to attack and when to retreat. If I wanted, I could create an entire series on the 48 laws of power based solely on Thomas. His nature seems to follow those laws naturally. But all these things don't make him any less dangerous or insane. He controls himself through his mind. But his driving force isn't just his mind or his thinking. Thomas is a strategic monster who is hard to stop. And what makes him even more dangerous is the only emotion that rules him: his ambition. His ambition is his greatest strength, but also his greatest curse. His ambitions are so intense and overwhelming that he cannot stop. Even if he wants to, he can't. There are no limits to his ambitions. He can go to any extent for his ambitions. His ambitions are his driving force, but they are uncontrollable. Even Thomas himself cannot control them. It's not that he hasn't tried. He has tried many times to stop himself, but he couldn't. If you don't understand what ambition means, in simple terms, it's the hunger to grow, the hunger to gain power, the hunger to keep moving forward. If a person has such ambitions, success becomes a trivial thing for them. It is this ambition that took Thomas from fixing horse races to becoming a member of Parliament. This ambition brought Thomas success, but also attention. And by attention, I don't just mean positive attention. When you are at the center of attention, you attract new enemies and new challenges. You come under the scrutiny of all kinds of people, good, bad, and worse. And it's not like Thomas doesn't know this. He knows it well. Yet he chooses challenges because he knows that challenges make him stronger. That's why he turns every challenge into an opportunity, sometimes knowingly and sometimes unknowingly. These challenges satisfy his ambitions and ideology. If an ordinary person sees death due to their ambitions, they would abandon those ambitions forever. Thomas, too, once came close to death, and for the first time, he realized the value of his life. For the first time, he felt the fear of losing his family, his home, his love, everything. Perhaps, at that moment, he wanted to choose an ordinary life, and he got the chance. He survived. But soon after, his ambitions took over again, sometimes by fate and sometimes by choice. But his ambitions always clung to him. His hunger was never satisfied. Sometimes it feels like he doesn't even know the meaning of peace. For him, peace might be the silence that comes only from a pile of corpses, something he learned from war. He finds cases that justify his ambitions. He finds problems he cannot solve. He finds men he cannot defeat. If a man like Thomas is your enemy, your defeat is almost certain. If you're not scared after hearing this, then you should be. The only person who can defeat Thomas Shelby is Thomas Shelby himself. And that's the biggest problem. You can bring him down temporarily, but you can't stop him. The only person capable of stopping and defeating Thomas Shelby is Thomas Shelby himself. And the scariest part is that he has already realized this. A man with uncontrollable ambitions like Thomas, who knows that no one can control him, can give rise to figures like Hitler, whose consequences are borne by the entire society. In Thomas's case, that society was just his family. It's not that Thomas never cared for them. He loved his family deeply and wanted to keep them safe. But in trying to protect everyone, Thomas became the very person who caused his family pain. His desire to control everything forced his family to bow before him, and the circumstances around him made it impossible for anyone to leave him. But if someone mustered the courage to distance themselves, they would inevitably be crushed under his ambitions. Michael, John, Ruby, Polly, and Grace. As her name suggests, she was Grace for Thomas Shelby. For Thomas, she was the reason that, to some extent, his ambitions were kept in check. Thomas must have considered an ordinary life with Grace at some point. When he realized he could lose her, he began to fear. He knew his ambitions and his strength were dangerous, and they invited danger from others. Even if Grace had tried to suppress his ambitions, she could never have erased them. Grace, or even Thomas himself, could never eliminate his ambitions because they are a significant part of him. So significant that without his ambitions, Thomas wouldn't be Thomas. That's why I said that for Thomas, his ambitions are his greatest curse. Peace and power can never coexist, and this character beautifully portrays that. On a personal level, I admire Thomas. Although he is the main hero of the show, he is not a good person or a messiah for the poor. He is a very practical character. On a psychological level, he has all the flaws that every human has. If you truly understand Thomas, you wouldn't want to be him. But despite all this, I admire his ambition. I desire his ambition, his obsession with his ambition. It's no less than madness. And on a genuine level, I love that madness. Perhaps this is the right time to stop my pen and put it down. There are many things I still want to say about Thomas Shelby. There are many aspects of his character that I haven't covered yet. But I know when to stop, and perhaps that's why I'm also crazy about his ambition. If you keep a character like Thomas in your mind for 10-12 days and start thinking about him, you'll discover many things. If you like the video, please comment and share your opinions. I know you're used to a grand ending, but this time, it won't happen. This time, it's just an ordinary ending. I know being ordinary isn't bad, but for me, it's embarrassing.